request of $32,915 to implement a 5% salary increase. The governor recommends expenditures of 1.7, all from the administrative office hearings fund and 14 FTEs. This is a decrease of $32,915 or 1.1% below the agency's request for 2024 due to the governor recommending agency enhancement requests for salary increases for ALJS for fiscal year 2024. And the subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation, and the subcommittee is looking at all pay raises as a global pay raise, and we will be doing that probably before omnibus. So with that, are there any questions? Seeing none, Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we accept the committee's recommendation for FY 2023 and 2024 on the Office of Administrative Hearings.
You've heard the motion. All in favor? Is there any discussion? I need a second, yes. Second by Senator Pittman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. Next, we'll have the Board of Indigence Defense Service. The agency submits a revised estimate of $50.7 million, including $50.1 million SGF for fiscal year 2023. This is an all-funds increase of $6,243, or 1% above the fiscal 2023 approved amount, and no change in the amount for SGF monies. Of this amount, $6,243 is for increased expenditures related to the Indigence Defense Service Fund, $2,391, and in-service educational workshop fee, $3,852. These are carry forward balances of the funds and will be used for expert witness services within the agency's training program. The agency estimate also includes 243.2 FTE positions, which is 1.1 FTE position below the approved amount. The change is due to a technical adjustment. The governor recommends expenditures of $52 million, including $51.4 million SGF in fiscal year 23. This is a SGF increase of $1.3 million, or 2.6% above the agency's 23 revised estimate. The increase is due to an increase of $1.3 million SGF for the fall 2022 assigned council caseload adjustments. The governor recommendation also includes 243.2 FTE positions, which is the same as the agency's 2023 revised estimate number. The subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendations for fiscal year 2023. Fiscal year 2024, the agency requested $69.8 million, including $69.2 million SGF in expenditures and 404.2 FTE positions for fiscal year 2024. This is an all-funds increase of $19.1 million, or 37.7%, and an SGF increase of $19.1 million. This is also an increase of 161 FTE positions above fiscal year 2023. First, the agency requests 601,490 SGF for a 3% base salary increase to address pay parity with prosecutors and other government employees for fiscal year '24. These adjustments would be based on years of service, employee skills development, and additional job duties. Second, the agency requested 13.2 million SGF and 131 FTE positions for ethical caseload staffing to address current and projected caseloads in an effort to mitigate current assigned counsel panel shortages. Third, the agency requested 3.8 million SGF and 30 FTE positions to cover first-year startup costs and staffing to establish public defenders' offices. Fourth, the agency requested 784,586 SGF for basic infrastructure upgrades, including additional lease space for current employees. Fifth, the agency requested 3.6 million SGF to fund an assigned counsel rate increase up to $140 per hour. Sixth, the agency requested 312,962 SGF in contractual service expenditures for salary increases for legal service for prisoners. Lastly, the agency requested 700,000 SGF to address caseload expenses related to capital cases. The increases are primarily offset by a reappropriation of 3.7 million SGF in fiscal year '23 that does not carry forward. Governor's recommendation. The governor recommends 50.3 million, including 49.7 million SGF towards fiscal year 2024. This is an SGF decrease of 19.5 million below the agency's request. The SGF decrease is primarily due to the governor not recommending the enhancement request for recruitment and retention, ethical caseload staffing, public defender office service, assigned counsel rate increases on legal services for prisoners, salary adjustments and capital casework expenditures, 22.1 million decrease in total. The recommendation includes partial funding for the agency's basic infrastructure upgrade enhancement request and funding to continue assigned counsel hourly rate at $120 for fiscal year 2024. The governor's recommendation also includes 243.2 FTE positions, which is 161 FTE positions below the agency's 2024 request. This is due to the governor not recommending the agency's enhancement request for caseload staffing and expansion of the public defender's office. The Senate subcommittee recommendation. Subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation for fiscal year 2024 with the following adjustment. The subcommittee recommends the Senate Committee on Ways and Means consider adding language to set the maximum compensation rate for assigned counsel at $120 per hour and to authorize expenditures from those funds for fiscal year 2024. With that, I would stand for questions. Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the questions that we brought up, of the 243 FTE positions that we're showing in 22, 23, and 22 and 23, are all those positions filled?
Are you talking the 161?
No, I'm talking to the existing
Oh,
243.
the existing ones. There is staff here if you'd like to ask, but they explained to us in committee that they have some empties, but they also have people they've interviewed, and they hire like in February and July, and it takes a little while to get these filled. So it's kind of hard to count exactly how many they have because they have interviewed a number of potential candidates for employment, and probably here at the end of February, they'd have a better count on that because they'll know if they're getting some new hires here in February and how many. Would you like for them to
The other question on that was the $120 an hour, which we're setting as the cap. What was that last year?
It was 120 last year.
last
Yes, we continue with what we had last year.
Thank you.
And the governor does have language for 24 and 25 for the 120. Any other questions? Seeing none, Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to accept the committee's recommendation for the Board of Indigent Defense Services for FY 2023 and 2024.
I have a motion, we have a second. Second by Senator Pittman. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next, we'll have the Corrections and Public Safety Subcommittee report. Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When you look at the three I'm going to review, your yellow packet, I think you start out with the Kansas Commission on Police Officers Standards. So that's the first one I'm going to do, just so that we can keep, you'll know, we'll be looking around in here. Okay, this is for the Kansas Commission of Police Officers Standards and Training Agency Estimate. The agency estimates revised expenditures of $974,702, all from special revenue funds and expenditures, and 6 FTE positions in FY 2023. This is an increase of $64,000 or 7.1% above the FY 2023 approved amount. The increase includes a supplemental request of $40,000 to increase the capacity and security of the central registry database. The revised estimate also includes an increase of $22,000 in salaries and wages. The increase of $10,800 in contractual services is due to leasing an additional 847 square foot of office space, resulting in an increase in annual rent expenditures. The governor concurs with the agency's revised estimate for FY 2023, and the subcommittee also concurs with the governor's recommendation in FY 2023. Is there any questions? If not, I'll proceed, Mr. Chairman. Okay, we'll go into FY 2024. Agency requests $1,100,000, all from special revenue funds and expenditures, and 6 FTE positions for FY 2024. This is an increase of $94,812 or 9.7% above the FY 2023 revised estimate. The increase includes an enhancement request of $100,000 for physical security and safety measures to include controlled entry, egress, video monitoring, and ballistic materials. The governor concurs with the agency's request for FY 2024, and the Senate subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation for FY 2024 with the following notation. Review the agency's annual adjustment during deliberation on the 5% statewide pay increase. This is the only one. We'll address the 5% on all the other ones later. So with that, I stand for questions. Entertain a motion? I'll make it, or, okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the committee's recommendation for the Kansas Commission of Police Officer Standards and Training for FY 2023 and 2024.
I have a motion and a second by Senator Alley. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next, we'll have, which one do you want next?
Kansas Sentencing.
The Kansas Sentencing Commission, Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The agency submits a revised estimate of $12,800,000, including $12.6 million SGF in expenditures and 15 FTE positions in FY 2023. This is an increase of $130,000 or 1% above the FY 2023 approved amount. The increase is mainly in capital outlay for the upgrade of the Research Division's statistical modeling software and other assistance for the 2003 SB 123 drug treatment program. The Governor recommends a revised 2023 budget of $12.7 million, including $12.6 million FGF. This is a decrease of $24,518 SGF, or 0.2%, below the agency's FY 2023 estimate. The decrease is due to a reduction in funding for salaries and wages. The subcommittee concurs with the Governor's recommendation. I stand for questions. If not, I'll proceed, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Agency requests $12.2 million, including, or $10.2 million, including $10.2 million SGF in expenditures and 15 FTE positions for FY 2024. This is a decrease of $2.5 million, or 19.8% below the FY 2023 revised estimate. The decrease is mainly due to a decrease of $2.6 million in other assistance, which is the amount of the reappropriations for FY 2022, which was added to the 2003 SB 123 drug treatment program in FY 2023 and does not continue into FY 2024. The Governor recommends $10.2 million, including $10.2 million SGF for FY 2024. This is a decrease of $24,518 SGF, or 0.2% below the agency's FY 2024 request. The decrease is due to a reduction in funding for salaries and wages. The Senate Subcommittee concurs with the Governor's recommendation for FY 2024. I stand for questions. If not, Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the committee's recommendation for the Kansas Sentencing Commission, that's the one we was on, for FY 2023 and 2024.
We have a motion, have a second by Senator Alley. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll have the Adjutant General's Department, Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The agency submits a revised estimate of $154.5 million, including $36.4 million SGF in FY 2023. This is an all-funds increase of $14 million, or 9.9%, including an SGF increase of $1.6 million, or 4.6% above the FY 2023 approved amount. The increase is primarily attributed to the agency's enhancement request of $17.6 million, including $1.6 million SGF funding for the initial phase in construction of the Joint Forces Headquarters on federal property at Forbes Field in Topeka. The increase is partially offset by decreased receipts of federal COVID-19 relief funds. The revised estimate includes 293.6 FTE positions, which is a decrease of 0.4 FTE positions below FY 2023 approved number. The FTE position decrease is in the Emergency Management and Homeland Security program. Governor's recommendation, Governor recommends $164.2 million, including $36.4 million SGF in FY 2023. This is an increase of $9.6 million, all from special revenue funds, or 6.2% above the agency's FY 2023 revised estimate. The recommendation includes an increase of $9.6 million, all from federal funds, to encumber funds for construction of Joint Forces Headquarters in 1 year rather than multiple years, with a total project cost of $17.6 million. The recommendation also includes an increase of $25,000, all from special revenue funds for inaugural activities, which is reimbursed by the inaugural committee. The recommendation includes two 93.6 FTE position, which is unchanged from the number in the FY 2023 estimate, revised estimate. The subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation in FY 2023. I stand for questions. If not, Mr. Chairman, I'll proceed to 2024. The agency request of $143.9 million, including $36.3 million SGF in expenditures for FY 2024. This is an all funds decrease of $10.6 million or 6.9%, including an SGF decrease of $110,166 or 0.3% below FY 2023 revised estimate. The decrease is attributable to the decreased receipts of federal funds for federally declared disasters and expenditures associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. The decrease is also attributed to decreased capital improvement expenditures due to completion of the new Hayes Armory in FY 2023. The decrease is partially offset by the agency's four enhancement requests totaling $45.7 million, including $25.7 million SGF. These enhancements requests include increases for state disaster payments of $20.9 million, rehabilitation and repair of the National Guard facilities, $2 million, remodel of the State Defense Building, $22.6 million, and SGF money for the Office of Emergency Communications to offset the elimination of a transfer from the State Highway Fund of $178,000. The agency budgeted $8 million, all from federal funds, to continue construction of a joint force headquarters on a federal property at Ford Field in Topeka. The request includes two 93.6 FTE positions, which is unchanged from FY 2023 revised estimate number. Governor's recommendation recommends $112.1 million, including $13.9 million SGF for FY 2024. This is an all funds decrease of $31.8 million or 22.1%, including an SGF decrease of $23.3 million or 64.2% below the FY 2024 agency request. The decrease is attributable to the governor not recommending enhancements for the State Defense Building remodel of $22.6 million. And the Office of Emergency Communications of $178,000. The recommendation includes a decrease of $8 million, all from federal funds for construction of the Joint Forces Headquarters, which reflects an incumbents for the entire project FY 2023 rather than the multiple years. The recommendation also includes partial adoption of the agency's enhancement request for a rehabilitation and repair of the National Guard facilities of $1 million. The recommendation includes two 93.6 FTE positions, which is unchanged from the FY 2023 recommendation. The Senate Subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation for FY 2024. I stand for questions. If not, Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the committee's recommendation for the Adjutant General Department for FY 2023 and 2024.
We have a motion and a second by Senator Alley. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Committee, I'd also like to mention we have Senator Masterson and Senator Kirshen on WebEx. Is there anyone else? That's it, okay. Okay, committee, that ends our budget report outs for today. We will now have a briefing on the Salt Parity Act. Secretary Mark Burgart, Kansas Department of Revenue. Senator Burgart, welcome committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. You should have a two-page memo before you. And before I get into the details of this new piece of legislation, I just want to make sure the committee understands that this new enactment has absolutely no impact on the tax liability of any Kansas taxpayer. The sole purpose of this legislation is to allow certain taxpayers who receive income from pass-through entities to avoid the $10,000 state and federal tax cap on their federal return. What this does is deal solely with a federal limitation and allows that to be avoided. Does not affect the tax liability, the Kansas tax liability for any Kansas taxpayer. So maybe just a little foundation will be helpful. When a pass-through entity exists, it's not taxed, and I'm talking now at the federal level. That entity does not pay taxes. All of the income flows through to its owners, and they pay tax on their federal individual income tax return. And that's the way it's been for years. Then the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was enacted in 2017, and that's when a $10,000 cap was put on the deduction available to an individual taxpayer for state and local taxes. So some of the high tax states wanted to help their taxpayers, and they came up with a methodology that has been accepted by the IRS that allows a SALT cap workaround. And that's exactly what the SALT Parity Act in Kansas does. Essentially, how this works is that the pass-through entity can make an election in Kansas to pay tax, state tax, at a 5.7% rate, that's our highest marginal tax rate, on that flow-through income, so it's paid at the entity level, and they are allowed to deduct that tax on their federal return for that entity, which reduces the liability, and then that income flows through at the federal level to the owners. Again, the benefit is on the federal return. That is where the tax savings comes into play for the taxpayers. So the tax is imposed at the entity level, and individual taxpayers in Kansas then would get a credit of that tax that was paid by the entity. Each owner gets a part of that credit for the tax that was paid by the entity that they can claim on their individual income tax return. This is a relatively complicated process when you're blending federal provisions and state provisions. But the gist of it is that the taxpayer, for Kansas purposes, is basically held harmless. I mean, there's no change in their Kansas state tax liability. It's just that this mechanism allows the owners and the entity to basically convert state taxes above the $10,000 cap, allows them to convert that from a non-deductible expense at the individual level to a deductible expense at the business level. That's all this bill does. So again, I think the bottom line is it doesn't affect the liability of the Kansas taxpayer, the Kansas liability, and should not have any fiscal impact for the state in the long run. But if you look on page 2, and I don't want to get into all of this, the practical effect of this is that it's going to result in some shifting of income that we receive. It's going to shift it from being a personal income tax receipt to a corporate income tax receipt, and the timing is going to change. If you look down at the bottom of page 2, it gives you an idea of how many entities have taken advantage of this already. And again, this mechanism is available for tax year 2022. So if you look down at the bottom, it shows that 1,795 payments, estimated tax payments, came in December from these entities. That's a 129.6 million that came in that was unexpected, not built into any sort of budget projection, whatever. And the reason that these payments were made in December is because the entities wanted to deduct them for federal purposes in 2022, lowering the liability for, ultimately, for the owners on their 2022 individual income tax return at the federal level. You look in January, you see that 1,978 payments came in for 101 million. That's actually probably a carryover from December. Taxpayers come in and they deliver a check on, or mail it, as long as it's postmarked by midnight on December 31st, that's a deductible expense on their 2022 federal income tax return. But when you look at this, there's 231 million that was paid by these entities to the state of Kansas. That money shows up, in December and January, but keep in mind that there is going to be a credit for that exact amount that will be claimed, a refundable credit, be claimed by all of the owners and shareholders starting in April. Most likely, most of that will occur in October. Most of these types of individual taxpayers file under extension, those that are receiving this passive income. So basically, when you see our monthly receipts or reports that are done, they're going to be a little deceiving for just looking at the numbers that are presented on page 2. Again, we had 231 million in payments, estimated payments from these entities, which really inflates corporate receipts for those months. 6 months down the road, or more so, that's going to be reversed, and that money is going to come out. So what you're going to see during the course of a year, you're going to see, as estimated payments for corporate purposes are made, you're going to see corporate receipts go up over the course of the year. At the same time, taxpayers are probably going to reduce their estimated payments that they make, knowing that they're going to get a credit of all of this tax that was paid by the entities. So you're going to see a shift where corporate receipts are going to be shown as going up, and at the same time, individual receipts will be lower than what have been estimated. So again, it's kind of a shifting between the tax types and a shifting of the timing of those receipts. CRE, our consensus revenue estimating group will have to determine how we're going to measure all of this. I just wanted to make the committee aware, as you're monitoring receipts on a monthly basis, that we may have to footnote some of these receipts because, again, you may receive 231 million in December and January for this fiscal year, but it's not there. It's going to be gone by October. So that is a very brief explanation of the SALT Parity Act. The details of that act are set forth on page 1, but basically it's an annual election that's made by the pass-through entity, whether they want to avail themselves of this opportunity. So I'd be happy to try to respond to questions.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And thank you for being here today. Appreciate it because it is very confusing and we thought it might be helpful to get a little more information on that. And, we were told on the December receipts when the 1,795 people filed, the 129.6 million, we were told that went in, but by the time you get the credits off of there, so I guess that's a guess because they said really by the time that was all said and done, we probably had a negative $10 to $20 million. Is that kind of what you projected in December?
I'm not sure. December corporate receipts were up some, just basic growth. I think I guess I don't have December, I have January, but the estimates.
You can use January too. I just grabbed
Okay.
December.
The estimate for corporate receipts for January was 35 million. Okay, and that's based upon consensus revenue estimate. The actual amount received in January was $166,105,000. That's a $131 million increase over the estimate. And of that amount, some of it is just growth. But most of it, and we know exactly how much it is, 129.6 million of that, as shown on the bottom, is the actual amount of the estimated payment coming from these pass-through entities. We are able to track very accurately how much these entities are paying because as flow-through entities, they've never paid estimated tax payments before. So we know who they are, and the payments that they are making now is solely attributable to the SALT Parity Act. So we can be very accurate in terms of identifying the payments that are coming associated with this enactment and not sort of commingle that with just general revenue growth for that revenue source.
So I guess a question I have, S Corps, C Corps, are LLCs able to use this also?
Yes, this pass-through mechanism applies to partnerships, S corporations, and LLCs, not C corps.
And it is capped at 10? Is that what you said earlier?
Well, the $10,000 cap, there is no cap for, again, for federal purposes, there is no $10,000 cap for the entity. It's not subject to a cap. The cap is at the shareholder level, which you circumvent by using this mechanism.
Other questions? Senator Alley.
Thank you, and thank you for being here today. This is new this year. Is that correct?
Yes, it's effective 2022 is the first tax year.
Right. So going forward, this will become the way we do business. Is that correct? So this is, you're just reporting today the abnormal activity which you're seeing, but in the next 24, 25 years, we should see this as a normal activity.
If this is still around for those years, the $10,000 tax cap at the federal level is effective for tax years 2018 through 2025.
And after that, it goes away.
And after that, individual taxpayers can deduct state and local taxes or on their federal return, no cap. So this really sort of becomes irrelevant, I think. Taxpayers not want to go through that unless Congress comes in and extends the cap.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you for being here today. Appreciate your coming over.
I'm confident that you will be getting further updates in terms of how we're going to account for all of this and track it so that our estimating process remains as accurate as we can make it.
Thank you. Committee, that concludes our work, but Senator McGinn had a couple of bills to introduce. Senator McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first bill has to do with requirements of living in a county if you are on a hospital board, and this basically expands it to the counties that are adjacent. And that number is RS 0467. You want to take them one at a time, or you want me to just keep going?
Doesn't matter, just.
And then the second one has to do with, I found out, in capers, everybody's always wanting a COLA, and I've always been strongly opposed to that. But one thing that was brought to my attention is a funeral benefit, and that hasn't been changed, I guess, since it all started pretty much in the 70s, I believe. And I guess to bury someone, it costs a lot more money nowadays. And the benefit was $4,000, and this bill just raises it to $6,000, which I still think you might get in on a cremation, but you're still going to have to pay extra money. So those are my two bills, and that's 0753. So
The first one, I apologize, I was talking to
first
staff.
one is by Senator Billinger.
Oh, okay.
And that's what I have.
Okay.
You want me to make a motion, or you just?
Yes, make a
I'd
motion.
like to make a motion to submit these bills.
We have a motion, a second by Senator Alley. Any discussion or anyone? We all in favor? Aye, okay.
Aye.
We accept the bills. Okay, committee, with that, that concludes our work for today, and thank you all, and thank you for being on Zoom also. We are adjourned.
Hey, thank you very much.